You can use AI to directly renegotiate bills, but knowing that, knowing where you are, looking at benchmark, drafting the emails for your providers, and really being on top of your personal finances.
Hello and welcome to the Times Radio Tech YouTube channel. I'm Harry Burt. I am the Director of Strategy and Innovation at News Corp, and I deal with all things AI. So we're in a series talking about how AI and generative AI can help you in your life, how it can help you as a parent. And today, I am very pleased to say we are talking about money, how we are going to think about AI. Can it either save you money? Is it going to make you rich? Is it going to make you broke? It could be many things, but I'm thrilled to say that I'm joined today by Emilie Bellet, who is the founder of Vestpod, and as written an author, You're Not Broke, You're Pre-Rich, which I love. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you got to the Vestpod and what your mission is there.
Thank you, Harry. Thanks for having me. I actually used to work in finance. I worked in private equity and for a big American bank, Lehman Brothers, and I was working in their investment funds, so making big financial decisions, investing institutional money, and working at, growing businesses and returning money to my investors. But over the years, I realized I didn't have the personal finance baggage, education to make my own financial decisions. So this is how, after leaving, finance, I've built Vestpod really to educate mostly women, or initially women, and now we have quite a broad community, and help people with their personal finances. So from anything from thinking more positively about money, understanding money, to budgeting, repaying debt, investing, and building wealth over a long period of time. There's a massive advice gap in the UK, so it's really trying to help this population who doesn't have access to a financial advisor.
So we are talking about all things AI on this channel, and obviously it is the buzzword. It's the transformation that's going to change the world. But from your point of view, is generative AI? Do you think AI is going to make ordinary people wealthier?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question, and we can look at the pros and cons of AI, of course. But what I've been seeing from the community and talking to people every day on how they approach money, I think a lot of them are using AI, are starting to use AI for their personal finances, because potentially it's the lack of advice, and they're looking for guidance, they're looking for education. So I think more and more technology will transform the way we think, we spend, we learn about money, and especially the younger generation. I was looking at some research, and 2/3 of young Brits are now using AI tools for financial guidance, and among the younger generation, 25-34 years old, 67% turn to platforms like ChatGPT for advice. I mean, let's not make the mistake that ChatGPT is giving you advice, is giving you guidance, it's giving you information, but you won't get the level of advice, financial advice you will get from independent financial advisors. So I think we're seeing a rapid adoption. But now we can look at, where is AI? What is the safest way to use AI, and how you can use it? It's interesting also. So this is more on the planning phase, but also on the investing. I was looking at some research from eToro, and 80% of millennial users are open to already using AI to manage their portfolios. So we see it in like different spaces in the investment space. So if we just look at AI, is it good? Is not? I think AI is brilliant for education and admin. So anything around explaining concepts, breaking things down, summarizing, especially summarizing documents. It could be investment documents, but it could also help you on your personal situation. Not to give you advice, but use it as a tool that could do some analysis for you. But what AI can't do for you is, unfortunately, AI is still making confident mistakes. So just an example, I've been using, ChatGPT, testing it in a few ways, and it still can mix up some UK rules around investing. It can quote some old ISA, individual savings accounts limit. It can make mistakes on tax bands. So I think it's really about taking a step back and knowing that's a tool that you can use. And most importantly, we're talking here about, can AI give you advice? No, it can't. AI is, it's not regulated financial advice. There's no duty of care. There's no protection if the guidance is wrong. So AI is a tool, not an advisor. So use it really to gain, clarity, to learn, but double check anything that could cost you money.
Okay, so if I'm sure there is a sort of utopian view of what it may be able to do, but knowing the sort of pitfalls of the average UK individual, what's the sort of one mistake that you see that you think that AI might be able to eliminate from people as they think about how they manage their money?
I think for me, when looking about money and personal finances, I think the hardest part is trying to know what you don't know about money. And a lot of people don't tackle their personal finances because we don't have the education, we didn't receive it in schools. Financial habits are formed from a very young age, from 3 to 7 years old. So there's the mindset around money, the ability or not to be able to make financial choices, and having the basics, having this layer of understanding of personal finances. So if you really treat AI as some sort of a teacher, a mentor in terms of personal finances, so sort of the low risk part of money management, I think that could be extremely helpful. So that could be breaking the jargon, summarizing, any pension or fund documents, or making sense of information that's overwhelming. And that's one of the main barriers, I think, for people. Like, let's take an area, for example, investing. I usually talk to women about getting started investing. Women are lacking behind when it comes to putting money in their pensions because of a lot of structural issues, but there's also this issue around confidence to get started investing in the stock market. But using AI could help you to sort of break down the process, especially if you don't have access to a financial advisors, because most people won't have enough money to be able to work with an advisor. So what are the first steps you can actually take from just, having your money all in a current account, not earning any money from, your savings, maybe building up an emergency fund, repaying debt. There's debt charities that are also using AI now, and they could help you also repay debt in a faster way, like, step change, for example, to also investing. So breaking down, I think, the process, it's actually really, really helpful to use AI for that.
Is there a risk? I think we in our previous channel, we were talking to someone in education. I think the risk that they were conveying is people think AI is ChatGPT. So it is an incredibly powerful tool. It's incredibly broad, but sometimes it's pretty opaque in where the information and the sources of their information are coming from. Is there a risk, or is there a risk about you're talking about goal setting? And I think a lot of people, don't even know where to start. What are the steps that I should be taking? Should people turn to chat? Is ChatGPT a good place to look at, or are there other ways that people can turn to? Because I assume that people don't have the money or the time or the patience for a financial advisor. Where can they start to turn to, and are there tools there already, or is this something that you think is still a way away?
So I think in terms of education, and that's what we provide at Vestpod, is we try to also bring the human aspect, a little bit of what we call the coaching, what we call, money confidence, having some support, having a community, because that's going to be really important to then, build up and help you, reach your goals. I think we should all be able to also take time for ourselves and think about our personal finances. We all live very, busy lives. Money is always on our to-do list, but it's the last thing we usually look at. So taking the time, first of all, to, write your goals, looking at your emergency funds, looking at your debt, that's really important. And you mentioned ChatGPT, and ChatGPT could help you actually do that by helping you in the process. But what you should be able to do is also do some good prompting when you use AI. And I think the quality of what you will get from your AI will depend massively on how you set it up. I've seen people actually setting up their AI to be like a money coach, to be like a financial advisor. So of course they are not going to be perfect, but it will give you ideas and it will ask you questions. So instead of asking GPT to give you answers on your questions and to build a plan for you, you can ask them to ask you the right questions and then do the work on your own to then build up on your goals. I think there's an issue around maybe accuracy when you use AI in terms of research. We talked about that, but also in terms of privacy, of course. So you don't want to upload all your personal details on ChatGPT. That's what you could do with a an individual financial advisor that would then get to know you and know your personal circumstances. But with AI, you could work around giving, ranges of personal details, assuming some income level, assuming some of the goals that you have. And I think when you build AI, and some people have built some very clear instructions on GPT, for example, telling them, behave as my financial advisor, but remember, you're just an AI model and you're not here to give me advice. So it's prompting him also to just make sure the AI tells you what it doesn't know and what are its limits. So to have some sort of, sanity check when you also use your AI and know the boundaries in terms of making your financial plan for yourself.
Everybody's different and everyone has a different risk profile, or the things they're interested in, motivations. So it does require to provide quite a lot of personal information. And I imagine that a lot of people are very nervous about providing personal information to ChatGPT and the general privacy concerns. Are there ways that people can use it which they can feel safe about their personal information?
What's happening at the moment is that now AI will be including in a lot of apps that you will be using with your bank. So just to give you a few examples, maybe Monzo, Starling, Revolut, all these platforms will start to use AI and they are regulated. So you could use these platforms and then leverage the AI that's on their platforms. They will be really helpful. I mean, I'm sure you've seen categorization of expenses, helping you build a budget, looking at your behavior when it comes to money. So some of these platforms will help you with auto saving or maybe, rounding up your purchases and putting the money in the different pots for saving, for investing. So they're trying to look at your behavior. They can, with open banking, they can screen your bank accounts. They can look at the type of transactions they're doing, and they can send you some information to let you know, how are you doing with your personal finances? Are you on the right track? That may not build your pension plan for you. That will probably not change maybe the end goal. But I think that's really good in terms of learning and keeping track of your money on a daily basis, because you get a lot of nudges. Money Hub is also a great platform that will do that for you in terms of looking at your personal finances.
For someone like me who just got sort of the idea of changing my bank account just fills me with utter dread of direct debits connected everywhere. Is money, you mentioned non-banking tools that you can use to analyze your spending, because obviously I imagine the first part of this is to don't spend more than you actually earn, trying to put some money away, get your safety fund. But what are there apps out there that you think are quite good that can do this, that are independent?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to, staying with your bank, but looking at, the apps that will use open banking. So for budgeting, you could look at apps such as Emma, for example, or Snoop. And these ones have also some really fun tools on them. So checking unused subscriptions, for example. So, I mean, I'm sure, I've had that for a while, you'll sign up for something maybe during the COVID time, or like, online subscriptions, maybe the gym, you never go there. And this will be screened on your account. And that's then a nice way to tell you haven't been using this subscription for a while. Do you want to cancel it? Are you still using it? And then you could also get some, automation and AI through investing. Some of the platforms that I think are really helpful for you if you want to start investing are what we call the robo-advisors. So a few names in the UK, Moneybox, Wealthify, Invest Engine, and these will help you build this first investment portfolio on your behalf. Again, slight red flag, they don't know you personally. What I think is helpful, we talked before about, maybe GPT or having an external AI that you can access directly, is if you feel there's too much jargon or if you don't know which platform to use. Just look at, the regulation. Are they, FCA regulated? That gives you also a level of safety and being able to use this ecosystem then in a safe way.
So one question I absolutely have to ask you, because this is the biggest bugbear for me, is pension. I am really worried that I'm not going to have enough money to retire on. I have a company pension. It doesn't seem to be making very much money. I've been in there for a number of years. The fees are very high. What could I do if I wanted to take control? and actually start to go, I just don't think this is the best pension for me. I think the fee's too high. What could I do, and how could AI just empower me to take that next step and actually start to work towards those goals?
Of course. So before you touch to your existing pension, just make sure you review the rules. You've checked that you're not going to lose money by actually moving your pension. So I can't tell you exactly on your personal pension, but I think everyone should review their personal pension. Many of us have lost logon details. We don't know where is our pension, how it's invested. So the first thing one of your main assets is actually your pension. So I think really good to look into it. When you decide for potentially like a new pension, new personal pension, in the UK we have the self-invested personal pensions. I usually see it in like 3 places where you could open this pension and put some of this money. You could look at the robo-advisors that we mentioned before. We leverage a lot of the AI. They're going to be more passive, so you can't really pick the types of funds you want. You can't pick like an individual stock that you really like and want to follow, but your money is going to be invested on your behalf. Then the second option is looking at the more DIY investment platforms in the UK, AJBL, Hargreaves Lansdowne, Interactive Investor, just to give you a few examples. Vanguard also. What you can do on this platform is you could select some of the funds yourself. So you could really build your portfolio. You could get started with what they call a ready-made portfolio. So they could make a suggestion for you based on your level of risk, and decide, okay, I like this equity fund, I like this bond fund, I want a mix of these, but I also like some of these tech stocks, AI stocks, whatever it is, any interest or knowledge you have, and add them into your portfolio. So I usually see the robo for a more beginner approach, and as you want to customize more your portfolio, maybe you look for more like DIY investment platform. And the last option is having full financial advice, full advice on your pot, where the advisor could do 2 things. First, just help you build a plan for yourself, more as a one-off, or they can also manage this portfolio for you and then charge you same like a fee for managing this portfolio.
Is there a sort of utopian view or an optimistic view that the everyday people like myself, let's say, uh, could be excited about, especially if they want to actually start to invest themselves? So they, rather than just putting it in a fund and a tracker fund, which we're all told, that's the way to go about things. Is there something where we can get access to a more something that gives us almost an unfair advantage to actually start getting wealthy?
What probably the richest are getting from their advisors, tax advisors, wealth advisors, that's what we would ideally get. So I think it's looking at a more holistic plan of your finances, and having this hybrid model of I'm leveraging tech for everything that could be automated, but I still want to talk to a human. I want someone who understands me, who understands my personal goal, my family situation, my personal situation. You talked about risk. Educate me about risk, because I think most of us could, when talking to especially women around investing, I think there's a misconception about what is risk, and risk can be perceived as something quite negative. So how can we build confidence around understanding that risk is linked to reward? You can take more risk when you have more time until you retire. So having this human element of coaching that will be more your sparring partner, your mentor, your coach. I think that's going to be amazing if you're able to actually combine the two. Then when we look at investing, especially, I don't think AI is changing how people learn about investing, but not necessarily how they should invest. I think we should still invest the same way, but AI could bring you the education. It could bring you analytics. You could do a lot of research a lot quicker. When we look at passive income, there are ways where you can invest, and actually most people will invest in a very boring and passive way, and having their portfolios that are rebalanced over time, that are very diversified. So it's not going to be about chasing the last stocks and last investments, or following advice from your TikTok, even if a lot of people are now looking at social media platforms on like getting some tips from there. But how could we leave our portfolio for a longer period of time, and stop tweaking our portfolios? Because also the more involved you are with a portfolio, usually the higher the the risk when you trade in a short period of time, and that could also be a lot more expensive. So I think it's fantastic for, if you could understand the risk, understand the fees, understand these long-term scenarios, but then not necessarily, rebalancing your portfolio over time. And that's where I think, regulated advisors can come, and because they will themselves leverage AI, that would be amazing to see advisors that could then take on more clients and just do this human touch, but having AI doing a lot of the regulated part for you.
Can AI do the analysis? Because people are not trained. They're not private equity analysts like you were and have the expertise. But can it bring the expertise and the data together for that to give them to level the playing field, I suppose, so they can actually start to be more involved and make more active decisions? I'm not saying that people should be trading every day, but to try and find where the value is or the opportunities.
What AI is doing really well is taking very large pieces of information, research, and making summaries or structuring the information. So what you shouldn't follow AI's advice on should you pick this stock or this stock, but you should maybe leverage AI to learn how to analyze certain stocks, how to analyze certain companies, and then once you've built your framework, and you can use AI to actually do that and have an investment strategy. I think that's the basics before you do anything and follow any advice, is defining your own investment strategy, deciding what you want to invest in, what are your limits, what are your boundaries, what is your investment time frame, what is your risk. And based on that, then you could access a lot of research. You could access summaries, you could build tables where you have, your indicators, you could have AI, monitoring the market for you and telling you, when to buy, when to sell, what's happening. This company is publishing their results, what can I do with this information? So I think it's really starting from yourself and your position as an active investor. An active investor will need to be a lot more a lot more knowledgeable about the market. So really using this learning curve and maybe using AI to do that, and then really make your own financial decisions, but leverage AI for everything that is, as you say, proprietary research, reading reports, summarizing reports, because you would usually have a full-time job. That's not going to be your job, but what could you do, in a shorter period of time to be also more reactive, knowing that's not always going to be the best way to invest. And for most people, passive is usually better. But of course, AI could do a big chunk of the work for you and trying to give you, trends, guidelines, and then you take your own decisions based on that.
Do you have any examples or use cases that you've seen where people have started to use these tools, and almost like a real world example of where they started with not very much and they've actually started to apply them? And often we can learn from people who've really lent into this stuff, and maybe they're on the sort of the bleeding edge of this stuff. But what is the art of the possible? What have you seen in some of the use cases? Have you seen any people who've actually been really, really successful in how they've transformed their money?
Yeah, so I think if we look at the basics, I think people have been, really successful using AI to build their basic plan and look at expenses, look at the way they spend money. So using AI to really screen how they were spending their money. So when we look at personal finances, you mentioned it, the important thing is, spending less that you earn and, saving the difference and using this to build wealth. So, on the spending side, it's maybe looking at bills, looking at subscription, renegotiating bills. So you can use AI to directly renegotiate bills, but knowing that, knowing where you are, looking at benchmark, drafting the emails for your providers, and really being on top of your personal finances. And I think that's been extremely helpful. So unfortunately, I don't think there's been a, get rich quick or anything like that. But I think I think it's really the peace of mind of knowing I'm doing the right thing, I'm validating my options, and I know I'm going to be on the right track. What I would say with AI and tech or everything we see on socials now is when it's too good to be true, it's probably not good for you. So really going back to the basics, I think is really important.
Where do you see, if you were putting a very optimistic view on this, how is this, do you think, fundamentally going to change, or how do you hope it will change people's wealth across the world?
So I think we are now seeing tools that are sort of gathering all this information on your sort of, your personal accounts and stuff, and they put it together. We are seeing other platforms that are helping you to save a little bit more. They're trying to understand your behavior. They're also trying to get you to invest a little bit more. So same around, behavior and building of habits and stuff like that. And what I think we're lacking, we're seeing like money coaches now that are able to help people on a little bit their day-to-day, their habits, but we still have a massive gap in terms of advice, and there won't be enough financial, advisors to advise, everyone in the population. So how do we build this, super advisors or superhuman that can then be able to understand each of us? Because you still need to have a very in-depth personal analysis of your situation, because what's going to work for me is not going to work for you. Democratization really of financial planning, and there are a few players that are working in the space. For example, Money Means is building a tool called IDA, where they're really trying to integrate AI for financial advisors, so leverage the work of financial advisors and try to replicate the work. Like, to which extent can we replicate the work of these advisors and do it on a personal basis? I think one important thing we didn't discuss today is around biases. Also, we've done a few exercises around AI, and again, like ChatGPT asking, can you show me a picture of what is an investor? And AI will always come back with a man in a suit. So, can we move from, what is finance to what is sort of a new model of finance where we all investors? I mean, I guess you're investing, I'm investing. When I talk to, hundreds of women in some of these conferences, they are investors, but they don't see themselves. So how could these agents also, be more inclusive and understand, like, again, personal circumstances?
Realistically, I might give myself an hour and a half to sort of think about it, but then I don't really want to be thinking about it day in, day out. Are there any tools that you could suggest that could get me started today, which at the same time I can feel confident that at any stage my data, I can delete my data and feel secure?
Without sharing your information, I think that's really important. You can do that for yourself if you have reminders on your calendar. But then if you want to use some of these platforms, something like You Need a Budget, something like Emma, these tools could actually help you to organize your finances. And then you could have also your little investment tool, and that could be one of these like robo-advisors, investing app. They will do all the work for you. You usually just have to, start opening an account, put a little bit of money in. Some platforms will just start with like £25 a month, £100 a month, and they will automatically invest on your behalf. So because you check every month, you have a mini sort of money date with yourself, you can decide, do I increase how much money I put into my investment account? And then this money will automatically be invested, in a selection of different funds. So it's probably reviewing, the allocation if you want to take more risk and stuff like that. But you really can, plan for the long term and be quite passive in a way once you've set up this mini money catch up with yourself.
Is there an example where you mentioned somebody who was in not dire financial straits, but was not in a good position, but actually has made the change? And what can people hope to see in a realistic time frame? Because this does feel abstract, but give me an example of what is it worth? How can people, you're talking about pre-rich, I want to be about post-rich. What can they expect? Give me an example of the best case that you've seen where somebody's transformed their money.
Yeah, you could actually follow on Instagram Claire Seal. She came a few times to talk to us on the podcast. I think she had about £25,000 of debt, so she managed to clear her short term. We're talking about short term debt, expensive debt. So clear this debt over a long period of time, and she used a series of tools. So really being on top of her finances, coaching, really small steps. That's not going to happen in one day. It took her a few years, but really going back to zero, and then then how do you rebuild your financial life from such events? And now she's talking about, getting a mortgage and having an investment portfolio. So these types of I mean, I've interviewed Claire, but in our workshops, that's what we do. So we take people over usually a period of 6 weeks where we really, go back to basics, and where I see this sort of evolution of, being pre-rich to being rich. And it's also about, mindset. It's not just a hard number on your bank account. It's really first starting with, the mindset. A lot of us, we completely ignore finances. We could feel, a lot of negative feelings and emotions around money. So try to, resetting how you feel about money, or at the very least understanding what is your money script, what are the messages you tell yourself in your head. So we do a lot of work around that. And it's also a lot of peer-to-peer learning. We never talk about money. So how can you start engaging in conversations, especially with, maybe your partner, with your families, people you live with? That's, the first step. And potentially, with people around you. And that helps in terms of, earning more, going for negotiation, going for, negotiating products, meeting a mortgage advisor. So really having these conversations around money, I think, is the first step, and it could be quite liberating with people to have these conversations. And then it's looking at, basic tools. Finance at the beginning is really not rocket science. We're not talking about picking, stocks or trying to really beat the market. We're talking about first, building up a security for yourself, emergency savings, a few months of living expenses on an account in case something happens to you, repaying this expensive debt. When you have credit card debt, overdraft, where the interest is at 17%, 20%, that's actually costing you a lot of money. So that's making you poorer. So once you've repaid that, you then are in a situation of saving. And then we tend to save for the short term, and that's what we do. We're in a cycle. We save for, now probably people are saving for Christmas, we're saving for our next holidays, but we don't save further than that because we don't project ourselves. It's very hard to think about ourselves in retirement and putting money aside. So how can we create pots of money for the short term, for the medium term, maybe 5 years' time, and for the long term, 10 years plus? And I've actually been using AI, and there's a lot of studies that shows that visualizing yourself in retirement help you save today for the future. So that's also one tool that you can use. I was trying to picture myself at age 60, 70, 80 and try to think about what is the life I want, and trying to connect it a bit more, emotionally, and making sure I make the effort to actually put money into my pension, even if I put small amounts today that will compound over, 30 years and 40 years. And that's really trying to find the motivation. So this is building your plan. Your plan has to be individual. It has to be linked to your goals. It can change over time. And then how do you execute on this plan? So you execute on the budgeting, and you can use, some of the apps we mentioned before, and then on the investing. I think people underestimate the power of investing and the power of compounding. So, of course, when saving money, you're getting some interest from your bank. But when there's inflation in the economy, you actually want to get, some sort of, higher return on your money. You want to make your money work a little bit harder for you. So you will have to look at, do I actually invest for a longer period of time? So you will be taking more risk, but you also expect a higher return. And what I've seen is people diligently putting money away every month. It doesn't need to be big amount of money, and this money will compound over time. The stock market has been, doing well. The next question is, where are we going? No one knows what's going to happen in the stock market. No one can guarantee that you will get a return. But that's why we say invest for at least 5 to 10 years, because that will help you ride market fluctuation. So when we're thinking retirement, we're thinking long term. This is where you're building wealth. Is by putting a little bit of money. You don't need to be, stock picker expert. Actually, we talked about, boring investment strategies, following what the market is doing, aligning your risk with the level of reward you want, and that's what is going to make you, wealthy, hopefully, over time.
Well, listen, thank you so much for. I've learned an awful lot, actually. I need to do an awful lot about my own money, clearly. But thank you so much for your time, Emilie Bellet. And if they need to find out more about you, where can people connect with you?
So they can find me on vestpod.com, where we have our courses. We have a few downloads on, helping you to get started investing, for example. And they can listen to our podcast, The Wallet, for weekly conversations.
Amazing. All right, Emilie, thank you so much.
Thank you.